Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're plunging into a world that feels, well, both ancient and intensely personal. It's governed by the heavy hand of tradition, whispered tales of curses, and some really surprising disruptive forces.
Yeah, and our source material for this deep dive is maybe a little unconventional. It's a transcript from a paranormal werewolf romance story.
It might sound surprising, yeah, but this narrative actually offers a really sharp lens. We can use it to examine some fascinating dynamics.
Absolutely. It explores the immense pressures individuals face when they're trapped within these, highly structured societies, the weight of generational expectations.
And just how powerfully unexpected things like genuine human connection can shake even the most rigid foundations.
Right. Think of this as a shortcut to understanding the core conflicts and insights hidden within this unique source.
Our mission today is basically to unpack what it tells us about navigating tradition, the burden of hidden conditions, and, well, what happens when necessity and unexpected feelings collide.
And at the heart of this story, driving everything forward, is this sort of double-edged sword of urgency.
Okay.
On one side, you have Lyra Wilder. She's a rare and capable female alpha, but she's wrestling with the strict demands of tradition and a ticking clock.
Right. And on the other side?
Derek Westwood, a powerful, wealthy male alpha, secretly battling a terrifying ancient curse that also comes with a hard deadline.
So both are desperate.
Exactly. And their force alliance, born of necessity, is really where our deep dive begins.
It's a setup that throws together business and magic, power and vulnerability. Let's get into it.
Okay.
So the source material opens by establishing a fundamental, almost bleak truth about this shifter world. It says, and I'm quoting here, it's a truth universally acknowledged that a female alpha, especially one without significant fortune, is automatically perceived as being desperate for an alliance.
And this isn't just like background flavor text. It's the immediate crushing reality for the protagonist, Lyra Wilder.
Really?
She's presented as a formidable character. A female alpha is inherently dominant, capable, a natural leader. Yet, paradoxically, her individual strength, her inherent authority, it isn't deemed sufficient by the established powers, specifically the council.
Right, it's this patriarchal structure just overriding natural capability. Tradition dictates she must secure a mate, a male consort.
Yeah, and not because she needs help leading, which is ironic.
Totally. It's to legitimize her position in the eyes of the council. It's all about appearances, adhering to ancient, maybe even arbitrary rules.
And the pressure is really intensified by a brutal deadline. The council, embodied by figures like Elder Blackwell, initially gives her 6 months to find this legitimizing mate.
6 months, okay.
That window is quickly slashed to just 3 months. If she fails, she faces a formal succession challenge.
Which means losing everything.
Everything. Her position, her pack, everything her family has built.
It feels less like a leadership requirement and more like an ultimatum. Designed to force her hand?
Definitely. And the source uses a really impactful phrase to convey how she feels about the situation. She feels like she's being bartered off like breeding stock.
Oof. Yeah. Her worth and future are just reduced to her ability to form a strategic mating alliance.
So the council presents her with what they see as a solution, Victor Holloway.
Okay.
Victor. And Lyra's immediate reaction, delivered with this, biting sarcasm, highlights the absurdity she sees in their expectation. She notes it's a sacrifice for an alpha like herself to even consider mating with a beta like Victor.
A beta. Right. So despite his lower rank, Victor's appeal to the council is clear connections.
Exactly. He serves directly under Derek Westwood, part of the most powerful family in the territory.
Okay. So mating Lyra to Victor is a play to align her pack and its territory indirectly with the Westwood influence.
That's the idea. But Victor himself is portrayed as, monumentally arrogant and dismissive.
So?
The source describes a scene where, even amidst shifter nobility at a party, he openly discusses keeping his mistress after they mate.
Seriously? In front of her?
Oh, yeah. And when Lyra challenges him, asks if she gets to have a lovers too, his response is just condescending. Insulting, really. He scoffs about not wanting to raise a bastard child, then orders her to fetch him a drink.
Wow. Okay, that's the breaking point then.
Absolutely. Lyra's rejection isn't just verbal, it's immediate, public, and dramatic. She shatters her champagne flute against Victor's face, in front of everyone.
Whoa.
A clear, defiant, I will not be mating with Victor.
That's a moment of incredible strength, self-respect. But as the source points out, it's also potentially catastrophic for her position.
Exactly. She's just eliminated her most viable option, the one the council pushed. A move that could cost her everything.
Yeah, the remaining interested packs are described as even worse than Victor. Her options are just dwindling, the deadline's closing in.
And this is where the narrative hints at the parallel urgency happening elsewhere. While Lyra is publicly struggling with her deadline,
Yeah.
Derek Westwood is also facing one that makes hers look tame in comparison. He's described as scanning potential mates with growing desperation.
Growing desperation. Okay, that immediately raises the question, what kind of deadline is so dire for the most powerful alpha? That feels hidden.
Which brings us to the chaotic moment that truly sets the story's central conflict in motion.
Right, the party. Lyra, having just torpedoed her engagement, feeling the full weight of the disaster, she's at this grand party at the Westwood estate, trying desperately to escape the judgmental eyes of shifter nobility.
She's completely consumed by her problems, pushing through the dense crowd towards the balcony doors, her mind racing. The source paints this picture of her being so focused on her internal turmoil that she's oblivious.
Oblivious to what?
To the subtle shifts in the crowd, the automatic difference as someone significant approaches.
Yeah. And then collision.
Collision. She literally bumps into a tall figure spilling red wine, specifically noting it's a very expensive 1982 Chateau Lafite Rothschild all over her dress.
Oh no.
Yeah, the description of the wine spreading like crimson blooms across the gray silk is such a potent visual, her internal chaos spilling out onto her physical self.
So the initial interaction, how does that go?
It's a masterclass in miscommunication and irritation. The man she's bumped into has this smooth, deep voice, but his reaction is anything but apologetic.
Well.
He flippantly comments that the dress looks better with the wine on it.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, Lyra, already at her limit, just snaps, calls him a jackass, and accuses him of just being a jackass.
She said that to him. Who is?
Well, that's the reveal. Victor appears, his face splotchy with residual anger from Lyra's rejection, but he immediately becomes subservient. Bows his head, addresses the man Lyra just insulted as my alpha.
No. Oh my God.
Lyra's fury gives way to dawning horror. This is Derek Westwood.
The Derek Westwood.
The source emphasizes his status. The most powerful alpha in the territory controls half the eastern lands, acquires territory like watches. His fortune could secure her pack's future for generations.
And she just called him a jackass. The shock must have been huge.
Stomach dropping, I imagine, yeah.
So the immediate aftermath is still tense. Lyra uses the opportunity, though, to firmly break her engagement with Victor, right in front of his alpha.
Yep. I'm not your future Luna, and the engagement is off. The crowd's reaction is a mix of shock and judgment.
In Victor?
He feels his power just eroding, resorts to threats, warning her she'll lose her position, her pack will suffer for your pride.
But Lyra holds her ground.
Another display of her alpha strength. She physically twists Victor's wrist to make him release her. A clear message. She won't be intimidated.
What's fascinating here is Derek's reaction in this moment.
Yeah.
He's watching, amused, and he subtly reinforces Lyra's status. He points out to Victor, she's the alpha here, not you.
That's interesting. A small line, but it's a recognition of her power that Victor completely disregarded.
Exactly. So, as Lyra attempts to leave, shaken, literally stained, Derek follows her. He notes her predicament, broken engagement, ruined expensive dress.
Okay.
And then out of nowhere comes the absolutely shocking proposition.
His solution is presented with startling casualness. You need a new dress? I'll get you one, he says, acknowledging the immediate superficial problem and then linking it seamlessly to her existential crisis. And you need a new mate? I'll get you one of those too.
The audacity. Lyra must be reeling.
Totally. And then he drops the bomb. Me!
Just like that. Me!
He offers himself the most powerful alpha in the territory as her mate, solving both her immediate and her most pressing long-term problem all in one breath. It's audacious, completely unexpected, and, well, the pivot point of the entire story.
Okay, so the natural question after such a shocking proposition is, why? Why would Derek Westwood, a man who seems to have everything, power, wealth, status, control over half the territory, propose a temporary marriage to a struggling female alpha he just met and who just called him a jackass?
Right. It seems crazy. The source lays out Derek's initial rationale, the business explanation he gives Lyra. He acknowledges the obvious. Lyra needs a mitt, and conveniently, he needs a mate.
Sounds perfectly transactional. Almost logical in their power-focused world.
Exactly. His stated goal is political ambition. He wants a seat on the National Wolf Council, and there's an upcoming vote for Elder Blackwell's replacement in just a month.
Okay, politics. But he has a problem.
He does. He's been rejected 3 times already for this council seat. The elders deem him not serious enough, primarily because of his infamous playboy reputation.
Ah, the playboy reputation.
So his belief is that taking a mate, presenting a stable, committed image, would demonstrate he's ready for responsibility and finally sway the council in his favor.
And he frames Lyra as the ideal candidate for this specific kind of arrangement.
Precisely. He heard about her situation. She needs a mate quickly for practical pack survival reasons, and she's clearly not looking for a traditional love match after the Victor debacle.
Right.
Crucially, he adds, neither of them actually wants to get married for real. It sets up the premise for a temporary, strategic, mutually beneficial contract.
So the proposed terms are presented as straightforward.
Very. A temporary mating bond, an agreement to be mated for 1 year. His goal? The council seat. Her goal. Legitimacy and security for her pack that comes from an alliance with the Westwood name and resources.
And the plan is explicit.
Yeah.
Break the bond and divorce after 1 year. Pitched as purely rational, strategic.
Yep. Lyra's initial reaction is exactly what you'd expect. Stunned disbelief. You're crazy. Who did that?
But the sheer desperation of her situation forces her to consider it.
It does. She admits, despite the craziness, it just might work. Her mind immediately jumps to the practical advantages. Immediate alliance with the strongest pack, securing her incredibly precarious position.
But she must have questions, concerns.
Oh, definitely. She brings up crucial ones, showing her pragmatic nature. Was a fake mating even magically possible or viable in their world?
Good question.
And what about the potential physical complications of breaking a bond after a year, especially one based on ancient magic?
Does he answer that?
Derek doesn't fully address the potential bond issues yet, just assures her it's all for show, implying the magic won't actually take hold, which feels a bit dismissive.
And she also voices concern about her pack's long-term stability after the proposed divorce. What if my pack just wants me to find another bait once we break things off?
And this is where Derek's offer goes slightly beyond the stated business transaction. He promises permanent protection for her pack for good, even after they divorce.
Lyra finds this awfully generous, right? Noting she seems to be getting more out of his stated goal than he is.
Exactly. It hints that there might be more motivating him than just a council seat. A subtle clue you might pick up on.
So despite her reservations and his slightly evasive answers about the bond, the deal solidifies. Lyra, ever practical, insists on a legally binding contract.
Derek agrees readily. Lawyers will handle it.
The timeline is incredibly compressed, though. Derek wants to announce the engagement that night at his party, emphasizing time is of the essence.
Yeah, that urgency feels disproportionate if it's just about a council vote a month away. Reinforces the sense that there's a hidden motive or a more pressing deadline he's not revealing.
And Lyra touches her neck, thinking about the physical claiming mark. She acknowledges this isn't just legal paperwork. It's an ancient, primal ritual rooted in ancient magic, binding.
Right. She recalls stories of mates being driven mad if the bond is set or deepens and then broken. So the stakes feel real, magically speaking.
Derek attempts to alleviate her concerns again, reiterating this would all be for show. No expectation of sharing a bed. They can each do our own thing after a brief fake honeymoon period.
He presents it as a purely public performance to achieve their separate ends.
So they shake hands, sealing the deal. Lyra, facing ruin, believes she has nothing to lose.
But, as the source ominously notes, she was being very, very wrong. This quick agreement, born out of desperation and perceived logic, sets the stage for the ancient magic of the bond to completely upend their carefully planned transactional arrangement.
With the business deal struck and the contract drafted, the next step is the physical and magical ritual that will solidify their arrangement in the eyes of their world. The claiming bite.
Yeah, and the source describes the setting, a private chamber, witnesses present, lending the solemn, almost sacred air despite the transactional nature of their union.
The officiant's words underscore the gravity. Sacred tradition, meant to bind these alphas in body, spirit, and magic. This isn't just signing a paper, it's invoking something deep and primal.
Which contrasts so sharply with their for-show intentions.
Absolutely. Lyra's perspective in this moment is crucial. Standing opposite Derek, her heart is pounding, intensely aware of the eyes on them. She notes Derek's unexpected seriousness, his usual charm absent, replaced by a focused intensity. When the officiant gives the signal, Lyra hesitates, freezing for a moment, maybe overwhelmed by the reality of what she's doing. Derek murmurs something, she gives a small nod, and he steps closer.
The description of the claiming bite itself is incredibly sensory, visceral. Derek touches her hip and the back of her head, his movements gentle, reverent, before his mouth grazes her neck. He whispers her name just before his teeth sink in.
And then the bond ignites. It's not subtle. Lyra feels pain sharp and brilliant, a jolt of pure sensation that immediately shifts into overwhelming heat, described as molten and golden.
Wow.
But it's more than just physical. The bond immediately opens a channel between them. She feels everything.
Like what?
The taste of her blood on his tongue, the sudden rush of heat through his body, the way his control falters under the intensity, and buried beneath it all, she feels his loneliness.
Loneliness. Okay, that's the first clear signal their four-show plan is already compromised. The bond is functioning on a deeper level than they anticipated, connecting them emotionally, exposing hidden aspects of Derek.
Her physical reaction is involuntary. Her knees buckle. She lets out an involuntary moan, clutching his arms as the bond tightens its hold. His scent, previously just part of his presence, is now addictive, craved.
His mouth lingers on her neck after the bite, slow, deliberate strokes, described as burning, raw. Instead of pushing him away, Lyra arches into him, her fingers threading through his hair, holding him there, drawn in by the intensity.
Then it's her turn to complete the ritual, biting him.
And his reaction.
Powerful, primal, deep, guttural growl.
Mm-hmm.
His body jerks, his hands gripping her waist, mirroring her own physical response to the bite.
The source describes the full connection of the bond as pleasure crashing, completely erasing any sense of boundary between them. A shared sensation, urgent and endless.
The bond explodes wide open, and through it, Lyra feels everything he is. Not just the outward facade, but the underlying pain, the immense self-restraint he usually maintains, the desire sparked by the bond, and that deep, pervasive loneliness she felt moments before. A final pulse locks this intense connection in place.
So after the ritual, the officiant leaves them to complete the bond in private, a customary step meant for intimacy.
But instead, the source describes silence, intense heat from the bond, and a feeling of suffocation. Overwhelmed by the sudden raw connection, they've drifted closer, undeniably pulled by the bond.
And Derek.
He offers a strained smile, a quick, almost dismissive touch, and says lightly, "Wouldn't want this bond to deepen too much, would we?"
Wow, a jarring return to the business arrangement pretense after that experience.
Exactly. Then he leaves, abruptly, leaving Lyra stunned, breathless, her body buzzing with the reality of the powerful, unexpected bond they just forged, and completely confused by his immediate withdrawal after such intensity.
This moment confirms the bond is far more than a show, and that Derek is hiding something significant.
Definitely. So the morning after this unexpectedly intense claiming bite, Lyra wakes up in a stunning, unfamiliar room. Silk sheets, gauzy curtains, sunlight. She's disoriented for a moment, then the memory rushes back. The wedding, the mating, the bond, the strange new reality. She's Mrs. Westwood.
Following their business arrangement plan, she expects to be alone, right?
Yeah. So her surprise is immense, jarring, when she finds Derek sleeping beside her. He's got his arm casually draped around her waist, holding her as if they've been sleeping this way for years.
That's a stark contrast to his abrupt departure the night before.
Totally. Lyra's reaction is immediate. Disbelief leads to her carefully extracting herself from his embrace, and then a burst of frustration and confusion. She hits him with a pillow, demanding, "What the fuck?"
And his reaction.
Derek's initial behavior confirms something is off. He's rough with sleep, confused, saying he can't even remember being in her bed. This is where the bond, that deep connection they forged, starts providing Lyra with vital, unsettling information. Through it, she feels his physical state, an ache behind her eyes, rolling nausea.
Like a hangover.
Exactly. She immediately recognizes the symptoms of a hangover, something highly unusual, almost impossible for shifters.
Okay, that's weird. Then she notices his hand.
Yes. As he reaches for the clock, he freezes, and Lyra feels a jolt of alarm spike through the bond. There's a deep gash on his palm, described as angry, red, and raw.
And it's not healing.
Not healing. For a shifter, an injury like that should have sealed within an hour.
Derek's reaction to seeing his own non-healing hand is telling. He stares at it in shock, muttering, "It didn't work."
It didn't work. What does that mean?
Well, Lyra feels, for a brief, terrifying moment, raw fear pulse through the bond from him before he instantly slams his emotions down, shutting her out like a door closing.
Okay, he's hiding something big. What follows is a clear display of panic and disorientation.
Right. Derek springs out of bed, his movements jerky, stumbling. He tries to leave the room, yanking the door open, slamming it shut. Closes his eyes, tries again, slams it shut, closes his eyes again. Finally, on the third attempt, he opens it and steps through decisively, a visible breath of relief washing over him.
That is bizarre behavior.
Utterly. Lyra, completely baffled, follows him into the hallway, but it's empty. He's simply vanished.
Leaving her alone with the humming bond, his strange, almost human symptoms, and the mystery of the non-healing injury. The simple business arrangement facade is completely shattered by this moment.
Yeah, it confirms that Derek is hiding something serious, something terrifying, and it's directly impacting his physical nature as a shifter.
This strange behavior, this non-healing injury, Derek's panic, it's all tied to a deep secret the source later reveals through his own perspective and conversations.
Ah, okay. So we get his side. Derek had visited Adrian, a magician, before the marriage.
A magician. Interesting.
Yeah, he was desperate for a way to break a curse afflicting his family. Adrian advised him that taking a mate would be an easier path than making a wish.
A wish would cost him.
What you value most, which for Derek, the most powerful alpha, likely meant his powers.
Okay, so that's the heart of Derek's hidden crisis. The Westwood family curse.
Exactly. Generations old, dating back to a powerful witch offended by a great-great-grandfather. The curse is devastatingly specific for the firstborn male heirs. They would lose their wolf side, become human on their 30th birthday if they hadn't mated by then.
Become human. Wow. That's huge for a shifter alpha.
Colossal. Derek grew up with these stories, saw it happen to his Aunt Eleanor. He always assumed he'd find someone, get married, break the curse well before he turned 30. He believed any mating bond would fulfill the condition.
Any bond. Okay. So that explains the urgency. As his 30th birthday loomed, he was suddenly running out of time, scanning potential mates with growing desperation. He thought he just needed to settle down and find a mate to pick the box.
Right. The "it didn't work" moment Lyra witnessed that morning was the horrifying realization that his assumption was wrong. The claiming bite, the physical bond with Lyra, hadn't broken the curse.
So his impaired healing the cut on his hand wasn't just from that morning.
No, the source mentions he'd been trying to hide the injury before the wedding and almost missed the ceremony because it wouldn't heal. It was proof that he was already losing his wolf side, already becoming human, despite being mated.
This terrifying secret is hinted at further in a conversation Derek has with his friend Ryder Blackwood, his best man. Ryder calls him in shock after getting the sudden wedding invitation.
Right. Ryder can't believe Derek, who wasn't dating anyone seriously, is suddenly married.
Derek tries to play it cool, initially mocking the idea of a fated mate. When my eyes met hers, it hit me like a ton of bricks, before admitting it's a business transaction.
Ryder is confused, naturally, especially about Lyra, describing her as alpha of a small pack on my eastern border, a nice girl, asks if he's merging packs. Derek denies it, saying independence is important to her.
So Ryder, completely bewildered, asks, then what are you getting out of this? He even points out Derek could easily just buy his way onto the council, a much simpler solution than marriage.
Yeah, and Derek's defensive response about wanting to be elected based on merit feels thin, even to Ryder.
Ryder's suspicion immediately connects the sudden marriage to Derek's previous conversation with Kate and the magician, Adrian.
Derek confirms Kate told him, acknowledging that mates share everything, another unintentional complication of the bond he didn't plan on.
Ryder warns him Adrian is dangerous and asks if he made a wish. Derek denies this, saying he only asked for advice from the ancient magician who knows things.
Ryder, persistent, presses about Derek's condition, linking it explicitly to losing my powers and the non-healing hand.
And Derek deflects again, insisting it's nothing that concerns you, claiming he's not in trouble, everything's fine. He even tries to distract Ryder by telling him he's the best man and needs to plan a bachelor party classic deflection.
It's clear. Derek's entire rushed marriage plan, his urgency, his strange, panicked behavior, it's all driven by this terrifying hidden curse and his growing realization that his planned solution, a simple transactional mating bond, has failed. He's rapidly running out of time and options, and he's absolutely terrified of becoming human, losing everything he is.
Meanwhile, back at the luxurious Westwood estate, Lyra is left navigating this opulent, unfamiliar world, feeling a hollow loneliness. A feeling amplified by the bond with Derek, even when he's not physically present.
Yeah, she encounters staff who immediately defer to her, calling her Mrs. Westwood, a constant reminder of the strange new reality of her status.
Taking a moment to herself in a bath, she reflects on the intense claiming bite, Derek's immediate withdrawal afterwards, and that unsettling detail of the blood on his glove the next morning. The bond, that deep connection humming beneath her consciousness, insists something is fundamentally wrong with him. She decides she needs answers.
And Derek reappears. He attempts to slide back into his familiar persona. Sitting on her bed, leg bouncing, slightly betraying his inner state, but he greets her with a dazzling smile, calling her his beautiful mate, offering dessert or suggesting they cuddle.
It's a performance, a return to the charming playboy facade.
But Lyra's perspective is different now because of the bond. She can feel the stark contrast between his outward projection of calm and what's really going on beneath the surface. Through the bond, she feels intense tension, anxiety, fear, emotions so strong they're almost electric.
So Derek tries all his usual distraction tactics, offering lavish desserts, mentioning the violins playing downstairs, trying to gently feed her a spoonful of souffle, trying to charm her into complacency.
Right. Keep her from asking the questions he knows she has.
But Lyra uses the bond against him. She knows his stress, pointing out the discrepancy between his relaxed facade and the anxiety she feels pulsing through their connection. She realizes that just as she feels his tension, he can also feel hers.
Ah, a two-way street.
Exactly. There's a brief, genuine moment that cuts through the performance, though. Lyra mentions the chocolate souffle is her favorite because her mother made it. Derek's reply is soft, sincere. I know. Your brother told me.
Oh, that's thoughtful.
Lyra is surprised, feeling an unexpected flutter of warmth. He actually did something considerate, asked Flynn about her preferences. It's a flicker of real connection in the midst of the artifice.
But this moment of warmth only heightens her suspicion, contrasting sharply with his strange behavior that morning, not remembering being in her bed, disappearing, the injured hand, the gloves. As she presses him about these things, she feels his anxiety spike dramatically through the bond.
Sensing the conversation is heading somewhere he doesn't want to go, Derek makes a decisive, almost desperate move. He plants a hand over her mouth, silencing her physically, while his eyes convey a desperate plea for her to be quiet.
Wow. Then he dismisses the staff and musicians with an authoritative, "Leave us!"
Once they are alone, the facade drops. Lyra, using her inherent alpha tone, demands, "Answers now."
Derek surrenders. Fine, he says, but his immediate response is to renegotiate the contract terms.
Renegotiate. How? Lyra tenses, her mind jumping to negative conclusions. "Not about to become your side piece, Luna," she states, wary of being sidelined.
Derek quickly reassures her that the pack support he promised is still secure, but then comes the shocker, the revelation that completely shifts the stakes and reveals the true failure of his initial plan. "I'm gonna need you to do something for me," he says. "It's very important, vital in fact. I need you to fall in love with me."
He needs her to what?
Fall in love with him, and he clarifies, for real.
After everything, the business deal. This is insane.
This demand, coming after their carefully constructed transactional agreement, is so out of left field, so completely unexpected and seemingly absurd given their circumstances, that Lyra's immediate reaction is perfect. She blinks, waits for the punchline, and when it doesn't come, she simply laughs.
Just laughs.
Pure, disbelieving humor in the face of overwhelming desperation.
So, the powerful alpha, who needed a mate for a political maneuver, now needs his temporary business deal wife to genuinely fall in love with him. And the source shows Derek launching into a full-scale, relentless courtship, following Lyra, refusing to take her resistance seriously.
His tactics initially lean heavily on his immense wealth, showering her with gifts. He fills her room with flowers, and when Lyra, trying to be difficult, claims she's allergic to roses, he simply replaces them with lilies, then her orchids, eventually donating them all to hospitals. Moved for it. Lyra notes is kind of nice, undermining her resistance.
Okay, so grand gestures. Then come the big gifts. A Ferrari appears in the driveway.
Yeah.
Flynn apparently told him her preference. Diamond necklaces, the deed to an island. He's trying to buy her affection, or at least make her so comfortable she can't say no.
But Lyra is determined not to fall for it. She actively resists, complaining about the gifts, deliberately wearing her rattiest sweats, talking with her mouth full, leaving wet towels around. She's trying to make herself unattractive to wear him down.
But the bond complicates everything, right?
Totally. The more she pushes, the more entertained Derek seems. And critically, his attempts at courtship aren't purely performance. Sincerity keeps slipping through. The bond gives him a direct line to her mind and feelings, making it easy for him to know her preferences, favorite season, colors.
So he asks questions, even though he already knows the answer.
Yeah, demonstrating a genuine, if clumsy, curiosity about her.
Lyra starts to feeling internal conflict then. His genuine curiosity about her pack, his thoughtful gestures like asking Flynn about her preferences, are unsettling. The stupid bond is blurring the lines.
Making it hard to separate the business agreement from the burgeoning connection. She knows he desperately needs something vital, her love, and she tells herself she mustn't believe his sudden change is real.
Yet she feels his underlying tension and fear through the bond, confirming that the stakes are higher than he lets on for him.
Right. His attempts at romance are sometimes endearing in their awkwardness, like his botched serenade where he renames a classic love song, "You Can't Help Falling in Love with Me."
Oh dear. Lyra finally reaches a breaking point with the absurdity, though.
She does. She snaps, demanding to know why he wants her to fall in love now, if they're just going to break the bond in a year anyway.
As soon as the words are out, she regrets her vulnerability. But Derek feels her worry through the bond. He follows her, asking if that's what's bothering her.
And then he makes a promise, one that defies their original contract and reveals the depth of his need.
Which is?
He promises he won't break the bond once she loves him.
Whoa. Lyra is stunned by the certainty in his voice. He challenges her directly. Look into my eyes. Tell me you feel nothing.
Her immediate defensive alpha response is the urge to smack you, followed by slamming the door, but alone.
The truth is undeniable. She admits to herself that she does feel everything he's trying to hide. His fear, his deep loneliness, and a growing, undeniable intrigue towards him. The bond makes these feelings inescapable.
The next morning, he appears disheveled, that faint, metallic tang of blood in his scent, again a persistent reminder of his hidden problem.
Lyra turns his question back on him. And what about you? She asks. Will you be falling in love with me then?
This is a moment of genuine vulnerability for Derek. He searches her eyes and asks softly, "Would you like me to?" He admits he's been an ass, that it's unfair to expect her love without offering his own feelings. He promises he will try to fall in love with her if that's what she wants.
Lyra is disbelieving. Try, she repeats, like it's some kind of chore.
He defends himself, saying he can't make any promises, and with a touch of wry humor, notes her own lack of effort in being seductive while still wearing oversized pajamas.
Days blur into a pattern. Lyra continues her attempts to be difficult, but Derek seems genuinely entertained by her resistance rather than annoyed.
He makes a plea, his voice fragile, revealing the vulnerability beneath his charm. "Just want us to try and make this relationship work. Give the bond a real chance." Lyra feels a fragile, frightened pulse through the bond, confirming the desperation behind his words.
Lyra, sensing this vulnerability and needing to understand the root of his desperation, makes a final demand for honesty. Why now? Why all of this? She feels his hesitation waver through the bond.
Finally, he agrees to tell her everything, the curse, the deadline, the true condition if she agrees to go on an actual date with him.
An actual date, yeah.
Yeah, his willingness to finally reveal his deepest secret in exchange for a simple date underscores how much he needs her to understand, and his vulnerability in that moment makes Lyra hesitate, but she agrees. One date.
The transactional framework of their relationship is slowly crumbling, replaced by demands for emotional truth and genuine connection.
The date is set, a significant step away from the transactional nature of their union. They go to a human restaurant, warm woods, gleaming silverware, a secluded booth Lyra chooses, perhaps to avoid being overheard by shifter society.
Lyra deliberately dresses down in jeans and a blouse, a last attempt to hold on to her separate identity amidst his world.
Derek initially tries to maintain a casual facade, mentioning the good Italian food, but he quickly admits she's right, that they need to talk. He notes that the bond is so annoying because it makes it hard to resist things like reaching for her hand.
A level of physical connection they've avoided outside of the claiming ritual. Lyra points out he usually manages fine, and he hints he's just better at hiding the bond's effects.
They attempt to get to know each other on a more personal level. Derek asks for something juicy, personal. Lyra is hesitant. Everything with him has felt like a negotiation, a deal.
But Derek insists, framing it as a normal part of dating. And Lyra feels his genuine curiosity through the bond, suggesting this isn't just part of the act.
Lyra takes a risk and shares something deeply personal. Her long-held resentment toward her brother Flynn, feeling she had to work twice as hard to be valued half as much.
Wow.
And realizing she resented the systemic bias against female alphas in their world more than Flynn himself, she feels embarrassed admitting this vulnerability.
The conversation eventually circles back to Derek. Lyra asks directly, "What's really going on with you?"
He deflects again, pretending everything's fine, trying to steer the conversation back to pleasantries, but his behavior starts to escalate. He stalls, suggests activities like dancing, promises to tell her everything later.
Their hands brush, his fingers linger, and he attributes it to the bond, making it hard to resist sometimes.
He starts drinking more wine, noting Lyra hasn't touched hers, perhaps trying to lower his own inhibitions or match her level. He observes that Lyra thinks too much, always analyzing, always suspicious.
Which Lyra sharply retorts someone has to do, since he's clearly not. He feigns hurt, wanting a break from her scrutiny.
This escalating behavior, the drinking, the slightly slurred words, the clumsiness, leads Lyra to the crucial realization of his state. She notices him listing slightly, his eyes slow to focus, his movements becoming uncoordinated.
She asks carefully, trying not to alarm him, "Are you feeling all right?" He denies it, claiming, "Never better."
The breaking point, the undeniable sign that something is seriously wrong, comes when he gestures and knocks over his wine glass. The slight slur in his speech, his delayed reactions, his physical clumsiness are now impossible to ignore.
Lyra asks directly, cutting through the pretense, "Derek, are you drunk?"
His reaction is a surge of panicked, hysterical denial. "Don't be ridiculous. Human wine doesn't affect us, usually," he stammers. Then the dam breaks. He starts laughing, a desperate, almost unhinged sound.
And begins listing the symptoms he's been hiding.
Everything. He can't heal properly, can barely shift, is affected by human alcohol, the terrifying fear of becoming human, needing glasses, exercise, feeling cold. It's a raw, unfiltered outpouring of the fear and frustration she's been feeling, pulsing through the bond.
Lyra immediately takes charge. She signals the waiter, gets the check, and drives him home. He's stumbling, leaning heavily on her.
The bond between them feels thick, hazy, and warm in the close confines of the car. He murmurs that she smells nice, asks if he's mentioned it before. Lyra simply notes that he's very drunk.
In this state of drunken vulnerability, a moment of deep, unexpected longing emerges. Derek asks softly, "Do you ever want to touch me?"
Lyra feels a surge of longing so intense, a powerful pull she'd been fighting. He confesses, "I want to touch you all the time, it's terribly distracting." He explains he never said anything because he assumed she already thought he was ridiculous.
Getting him into his mansion and towards his bedroom, Lyra resists the pull of the bond, but he finds excuses to touch her, his hand resting on her waist. And then as they reach the room, Derek has a drunken realization. "We've never kissed."
Oh boy.
He leans in, pressing his lips to hers. The kiss is described as surprisingly gentle, almost sweet, not demanding despite his state. The bond flares between them, bright and hot, and for a brief moment, Lyra lets herself sink into the connection, into the kiss.
Pulling back slightly, heavy-lidded from the wine, Derek offers a fragmented confession, the truth finally spilling out. "Suppose I should tell you now about what's happening to me."
Lyra protests that he doesn't have to, not like this, but he insists, waving a hand over his increasingly human form. "I'm turning to a human."
The full details of the curse emerge from his perspective. It was cast by a powerful witch on a great-great-grandfather. The condition wasn't just finding a mate before 30, as he initially believed.
The crucial, terrifying detail he only learned recently
is that he must find a mate who loves you. He admits he didn't know the love part when he met Lyra. He thought a simple bond, a transactional mating, would be enough to break it.
Lyra connects the dots. His slow healing, his inability to fully shift. She feels a powerful internal conflict, thoughts of anger and betrayal, warring with the deep sense of self-recrimination and drowsiness pulsing through the bond from him.
She realizes, with a pang of understanding, that she'd probably hide such a damning, terrifying secret too.
In his drunken, vulnerable state, Derek's insecurities surface. He asks if she likes him. Not even a little bit, assuming she's only there for her pack and the resources he represents. Overcome by wine and emotion, he falls asleep.
Leaving Lyra with the overwhelming realization that she does like him, that she feels everything he hides, and that she has absolutely no idea what to do about any of it, or about him.
The morning after the drunken confession and the unexpected kiss, Lyra finds herself instinctively falling into a caretaker role. She helps Derek through his hangover, which is distinctly a human hangover, the vomiting, the pounding headache, symptoms alien to shifters.
Despite his embarrassment and protests, he allows her to care for him. He leans into her hand as she smooths his hair back, rests his head in her lap. It's a quiet, intimate moment, a tenderness emerging unexpectedly between them.
For Derek, this simple act of care sparks a feeling of profound safety and contentment, something he hasn't felt since his wolf began to fade. The bond between them hums gently, and he feels safe for the first time in months.
He drifts off to sleep in her lap and wakes later curled around her, their legs tangled, the bond warm and drowsy. He thinks, perhaps with surprise, maybe this mate thing isn't so terrible after all.
He wakes feeling surprisingly good, clear-headed, the weight of his secret briefly lifted by the confession. He feels a genuine desire to do something nice for Lyra, something thoughtful, not a grand performative gesture.
Right. He sees her fidgeting at breakfast, feeling the weight of her pack's future on her shoulders, and thinks about arranging a day just for her, free from her burdens. Genuine affection is beginning to override his transactional mindset.
But Lyra, pragmatic and perhaps overwhelmed by the impossibility of his situation and the depth of his secret, makes a difficult decision. Without preamble, she suggests they break the bond.
Ouch. Why?
Her reasoning is gentle but firm, prioritizing his survival above their arrangement or her own burgeoning feelings. "You need to find someone to fall in love with you," she says. "You won't do that while mated to me." She sees their current situation as an obstacle to the very thing he needs to survive.
Derek is blindsided. His coffee cup freezes midair. He feels the urge to protest, to be hurt, but he also feels her genuine concern radiating through the bond.
He manages a forced laugh, acknowledging that after his vulnerable, drunken display, it's unlikely she'll be falling for him anyway.
Lyra reiterates her perspective. This was always a business arrangement. You need to build something real, implying that their foundation, born of necessity and lies, isn't real enough to break the curse.
Derek's internal struggle is palpable through the bond. He hears that she's right about it being business, and a sharp pain of hurt constricts his chest. He realizes his scheme failed, not only magically, but also ruined things with her.
He acknowledges he should have been looking for someone else all along. He admits to himself that he sort of liked Lyra a lot, which is why the thought of letting her down now, leaving her with an empty promise, hurts.
Despite his pain and the collapse of his plan, he insists on keeping his promise to her. He won't break the bond immediately, even if it's useless for the curse. She can return to her pack, and he'll figure something out.
He insists on keeping his promise to protect her pack permanently, even after they're no longer mated, stating, "It's what we agreed on." It's presented as a point of honor for him, perhaps the only thing he feels he can still genuinely offer.
Lyra agrees to leave the bond for now, but adds a condition. When he finds someone he genuinely cares for, someone who might be the key to breaking the curse, they break their bond immediately because your health takes priority.
After Lyra leaves, Derek's forced smile falls away. The full, painful realization hits him. He doesn't just want someone to care for him to break the curse. He wants her to care for him, genuinely.
He regrets his lies and schemes, acknowledging she deserved better from the start. Keeping his promise to protect her pack is the one honest thing he can offer now that his plan has collapsed and he believes he has nothing left to give.
Their temporary business arrangement has unexpectedly paved the way for genuine feelings. But Derek, facing his impending transformation, believes he's too far gone to act on them.
Time passes, about a month since Lyra left the Westwood estate and returned to her pack. She's in her office, preparing for a border territory meeting, glancing at the clock, feeling nervous about seeing Derek again for the first time since their date and confession.
Her brother Flynn is there, observing her, concerned. He notes she's acting like nothing's wrong, asks if she misses Derek, attributing any feelings to a false sense of connection from the bond. Lyra denies missing him, insisting the bond is just confusing.
But the expected visitor, Derek, doesn't show up.
No, who does?
Instead, Victor Holloway arrives, smirking, making himself at home in Lyra's office. He announces curtly, Alpha Westwood sends his regrets, and that he's been authorized to speak on Derek's behalf.
Oh, not Victor again. This can't be good.
The meeting proceeds formally, discussing pack business hunting grounds, timber rights, patrol schedules. Lyra counters Victor's proposals, maintaining her professional composure, while Victor watches her with amusement, clearly enjoying her discomfort.
Victor starts his subtle taunts, offering deliberately evasive answers about Derek's health and activities. He asks Lyra if she knows what Derek has been preoccupied with, pointedly referencing how mates share everything through the bond, implying knowledge she lacks.
Then comes the calculated blow. Victor states almost casually that Derek has been seeing someone quite seriously, barely leaving her side. "For a fact, I just thought you knew," he says, the malice barely hidden.
Lyra's physical reaction is immediate and visceral. Her claiming mark burns. Her wolf bristles with territorial rage. She attempts to regain control, claiming they have a unique arrangement and understanding, dismissing Victor's implication.
Victor pretends disbelief, comparing it to his own previous arrangement with his mistress and calling it progressive, feigning acceptance while delivering his final cut. She must be perfectly content watching him parade his mistress around while you bury yourself in work.
That's brutal. The meeting ends abruptly then.
Yes. Lyra insists they resume when Derek can attend, unwilling to continue negotiating with Victor's provocations. Victor is clearly pleased by the reaction he's elicited. Afterwards, alone with Flynn, Lyra is distressed, admitting she wasn't expecting that.
That night, alone, Victor's words torment her. Images of Derek with another woman fill her mind. The bond, usually humming, feels quiet, deliberately muted. She suspects Derek is actively shielding his emotions from her, confirming Victor's words.
She struggles internally, trying to deny her feelings, reminding herself he's not hers, that their mating was purely business. But the thought of him with someone else, finding the connection he needs, makes her feel like she can't breathe.
The business arrangement is proving to be far more emotionally complicated than planned.
Despite her rationalizations, the emotional need overrides logic. She fights the urge, but eventually gives in, calling the Westwood estate.
Derek answers.
He sounds surprised, asking if she's all right. Lyra feels a rush of warmth through the bond. It hums to life, no longer muted. She notes that the meeting would have gone better if he had been there.
She asks directly about the someone Victor mentioned.
Yes, through the bond, she feels a flicker of surprise and guilt from Derek. He confirms he's spending time with someone, calling it complicated. He admits it has potential.
Potential. Specifically, she understands potential for breaking the curse.
Lyra feels the hurt, a physical ache. Even though she rationally knew he needed to find someone, hearing him confirm it makes it devastatingly real. She asks if it's serious. Potential. She hears the confirmation in his tone and through the bond.
Feeling a mix of pain and a strange, self-sabotaging impulse, she suggests that if it's getting serious, perhaps they should consider breaking their bond soon.
Through the bond, she feels his surprise and hurt at her suggestion. A realization she was hoping he'd say no, hoping he'd say she was the potential, despite everything.
Derek agrees, slowly, his voice tight. That might not be a bad idea. The timing makes sense.
Before her voice can betray the depth of her reaction, before he can say anything else that might hurt her more, Lyra hangs up, staring at nothing, her heart pounding.
The transactional relationship has completely unraveled, leaving only unacknowledged feelings and the looming deadline of Derek's curse.
This escalating emotional and physical tension culminates on Derek's 30th birthday party. Just 2 hours before midnight, the absolute deadline for his curse. Derek has described adjusting his tie, appearing outwardly perfect, the picture of power and control, but inside, he's fallen apart.
His thoughts reveal his inner turmoil. He regrets not breaking the bond with Lyra weeks ago, setting her free when he had the chance. He admits to a foolish, desperate hope that held him back, the faint, irrational hope that maybe, just maybe, she might somehow come to love him.
But he knows now she doesn't. Their relationship was built on lies and necessity. He feels she deserves better than the human he's about to become.
Isabel arrives, the someone Victor mentioned, described as resplendent and clearly ambitious, embodying the kind of mate traditional shifter society expects one who wants position, status, and alliance. She's physically present, leaning in, asserting her claim.
Derek makes a final desperate attempt to connect with Isabel, to find a spark, something deeper that might fulfill the curse's true condition. He looks for a connection, a sense of kinship. He realizes there's only objective attraction, compatibility based on status, nothing profound, certainly nothing like Lyra. The bond with Lyra, even quieted, has shown him what's missing.
He asks Isabel the crucial, terrifying question. If she loves him, not his status, his pack, his name.
And her reaction confirms everything he feared. She's surprised by the question, dismissing love as irrelevant at their level, stating plainly, relationships are alliances, mergers.
A coldness settles in his chest. Isabel, the perfect match by societal standards, cannot break the curse. The connection based purely on status and compatibility should be enough, according to the rules of their world, but it doesn't meet the magical requirement of genuine love.
Isabel, unaware of the curse's true condition or the impending deadline, proposes they formalize things tonight, break the bond with Lyra, and announce their engagement at the party, calling it perfect timing.
Derek recognizes the dark humor in this, knowing it's completely pointless there isn't enough time for a new bond, even a genuine one, to form and take hold before midnight.
He refuses. I can't. Isabel's anger flares, demanding can't or won't. She accuses him, it's her, isn't it? Referring to Lyra with thinly veiled contempt. She calls Lyra a little nobody with a pathetic excuse for a pack.
Calling her nothing, not wealthy, not powerful, not even pretty, just pure contempt.
Derek's defense of Lyra is immediate and instinctual. He warns Isabel not to talk about her like that, a low growl underlying his voice. Isabel challenges him, pointing out their business arrangement, their contract marriage, questioning his feelings.
The confrontation turns physical. Isabel blocks his path, challenging him to make me move. She shoves him not hard by shifter standards, but Derek is already weakened, barely a wolf.
He stumbles, hitting his wrist on a desk. The pain is sharp and immediate, and terrifyingly, his wrist swells and bruises instantly. Isabel is shocked, protesting she barely touched him.
The realization hits Derek with brutal clarity. He's barely a wolf anymore. The curse is already taking hold. His healing is gone. He leaves, rejecting Isabel's help, insisting he's fine, the facade cracking. Isabel leaves in anger, and gossip immediately starts among the guests drawn by the commotion.
In the final moments at the mansion, his wrist throbs, swelling and bruising in a way no shifter injury should. He knows this pain, this fragility, will soon be his permanent reality.
From the balcony, looking out at the glittering party celebrating him, the hundreds of guests, he has a stark, lonely realization. Not one of them truly knows him. His life, built on a facade of wealth, power, and status, is nothing of substance, nothing real.
He accepts his fate. Glancing at his watch with just over an hour left until midnight, Derek turns from the light of the party, slipping into the shadows. He is leaving behind everything he's ever known, choosing to face the end alone, believing his only chance at breaking the curse died with his failed scheme and the revelation that love was required.
As Derek slips into the shadows, facing his final hour, Lyra is at the party. The same party celebrating Derek's 30th birthday. Her champagne glass remains untouched as she scans the room, looking for him.
Ryder finds her, informing her Derek isn't there. No one has seen him since his argument with his girlfriend, Isabel, and he's been acting strangely for months.
Lyra's alarm spikes. She connects the argument she heard about with the deadline, with his confession on the date with the non-healing hand. She finally understands why he's been acting strangely. He's been losing his powers. The crust was already taking hold.
The accusation spills out, directed at the oblivious guests and staff. No one went after him.
She checks the time. Just after 11 p.m. The deadline is midnight. Less than an hour left. A wave of clarity and fierce determination washes over her. Lyra makes an immediate decision. I need to find him.
Ignoring Ryder's bewildered calls, she moves purposefully towards the exit. She uses the bond, that connection they shared, opening herself fully to it, deliberately ignoring the weeks of muted emotions. She sends her awareness out, reaching for him.
And she finds him. Through the bond, she feels him. Pain, resignation, and beneath it all, a desperate loneliness that makes her chest ache. She focuses, sending a message through the connection. Hold on, I'm coming.
Her escape from the mansion is urgent, abandoning all pretense of dignity. She kicks off her heels and heads straight for the forest bordering the estate. Once beneath the cover of the trees, she allows the transformation, something that feels natural, necessary.
She quickly shifts to wolf form, feeling her bones shift, muscles contract, fur rippling across her skin, her dress falling away. Her senses sharpen. The familiar forest becomes an open book.
She tracks him by scent, Derek's scent, distinctive and familiar, still fresh on the forest floor. The bond pulls her, acts as a compass, a direct line guiding her through the darkness. Running faster than she thought possible, desperation adding to her speed, she follows the trail into the foothills.
She spots lights in the distance, a modern cabin perched on a cliff edge. The silver gate is open, his car is there. She approaches cautiously in her wolf form, seeing his silhouette through the windows, shoulders slumped in defeat.
At the edge of the forest, she shifts back to human form, naked and shivering in the cool night air. She walks toward the cabin, knowing in that moment that some things matter more than dignity. And finding Derek, being with him now, matters more than anything.
The cabin door is locked. When he doesn't answer her frantic knocks, Lyra, fueled by urgency and adrenaline, kicks it open. Wood splinters, the door bangs inward. The cabin is warm inside, smelling of whiskey and a dying fire in the hearth.
She finds Derek sitting on the floor, back against a sofa, disheveled in his ruined tuxedo, a tumbler in his hand. His first words to her are flat, empty, words of ultimate defeat. You're too late. It's done.
Lyra's heart sinks. She looks at the clock on the mantel. 7 minutes past midnight. Just a few minutes too late. The deadline has passed. The curse has taken hold.
Finding him there, defeated and seemingly resigned to his fate, Lyra grabs a coat from a nearby chair for cover and moves towards him. Her pulse quickens as she takes in his state slumped against the sofa, his eyes dimmer, that inherent grace muted, his injured wrist visibly swollen and bruised, proof of his lost healing.
Derek's despair is palpable, raw. His voice is flat, empty of hope. He tells her to go, insists there's nothing for you here anymore. He truly believes he's human now. What gave it away? He asks dully.
He predicts the inevitable. Someone will challenge him by tomorrow. He'll lose everything because he can't even shift anymore.
But Lyra refuses to accept this. She kneels beside him, reaching for his injured hand, gently taking it. That's not true, she insists, her voice firm. I'll help you.
Derek pulls his hand away sharply, setting down his glass. He pushes her away, trying to create distance. There is no we, Lyra, not anymore. He's trying to release her, verbally severing their connection. He says the agreement is void because he can't uphold his end, telling her she's free to go back to your pack, find a proper mate.
Lyra's anger flares, fueled by his dismissal of her presence, of them. That's not your decision to make, she retorts, her alpha authority ringing in her voice.
Derek explains his reasoning from his perspective, clinging to the idea it was always just business, that he can't protect her pack as a human. He still believes she only chose him for his resources and that he couldn't even live amongst your people. Now that he's weak, he believes he's useless to her.
But Lyra pushes back, her voice softening as she tries to reach past his despair. That's not why I'm here, she insists. I don't care, Derek. Please just let me help. She implies she understands the harsh realities of their world, that she sees him, weaknesses and all, and accepts him anyway.
Derek's true motive for pushing her away is revealed as his voice softens, tinged with sadness. I know what happens to the weak, and I won't drag you down with me.
He's trying to protect her, to spare her from his perceived inevitable downfall, believing he will be a burden, a target, and he doesn't want her caught in the crossfire. He's trying to save her.
In that moment of profound understanding, seeing his protective instinct even in his defeat, Lyra makes a spontaneous choice that transcends words. Without warning, she leans forward and presses her lips to his. Derek freezes in surprise for a beat, then responds gently, his good hand lifting to cradle her face. The bond between them, muted for weeks, dormant since midnight, flares bright and hot, humming back to life with astonishing intensity.
Lyra pours everything she feels into the kiss, her worry, her understanding, her acceptance, trying to convey what words haven't been able to. When they break apart, Derek's voice is rough, filled with confusion and hope. "What are you doing?"
Lyra answers simply, directly, her voice unwavering. "I choose you," she says. "Human or wolf, powerful or not."
Derek's eyes snap open, wide with disbelief, warring with fragile hope. "Don't be ridiculous," he protests, still clinging to his belief that he's lost everything and is worthless to her.
Lyra counters, her voice firm.
"No, you are being ridiculous," she says. "I've been miserable without you, Derek," admitting the truth she'd hidden even from herself. "It's more than that. It always has been." She dismisses his fear that it's just the bond talking, stating with absolute certainty, "I don't want a better mate. I want you." Taking a steadying breath, she gives voice to the truth that will shatter his defeat. "I love you, Derek. Not your money, not your power. You."
Derek stares at her, overwhelmed. Through the bond, Lyra feels a tempest of emotions. Hope, fear, longing, and a crushing sense of unworthiness. He struggles saying, it doesn't matter, believing his love isn't enough, that he doesn't deserve hers now that he's potentially human.
Lyra challenges him, her hand on his chin, turning his face back to hers. "It matters to me," she says. "Tell me you don't love me. Tell me you don't want this. If you can do that, I'll walk away right now."
Derek's internal conflict is visible, a struggle between his fear, his unworthiness, and the overwhelming reality of her love and his own. He opens his mouth, closes it, and then something breaks within him. He surges forward, capturing her lips in a hungry, desperate kiss. "Of course I love you," he says, his voice thick and cracking with emotion. He explains why he tried to push her away, why he wanted to let her go. She deserved better when he had everything, and infinitely better now that he felt he had nothing left to give. He didn't want to trap her in a useless bond with a deadbeat.
Lyra silences his self-recrimination with another kiss, pouring all her love and certainty into the bond connecting them. The bond pulses, warms, strengthens, no longer just a business arrangement or a curse symptom, but a powerful link of shared emotion. And then, the miracle.
The miracle. Derek gasps, pulls back, looking at his injured wrist in disbelief. It's healing. The swelling receding, the bruising fading before their eyes, skin knitting together with impossible speed. "I don't understand," he whispers, astonished. "It was supposed to be too late."
Lyra offers a theory. Perhaps it wasn't that it was strictly impossible after 30, but that the curse's condition was that he would become human by 30 if he hadn't fulfilled the true requirement before then.
She implies, and he understands, that the curse required something specific, something magical and deeply human, genuine love from his mate to break its hold.
Derek confirms this realization by capturing her in an intense reborn kiss, his arms wrapping around her with newfound strength, the strength of his wolf returning. He calls her insane for choosing him, for loving him, despite everything he thought he'd lost.
Lyra agrees, smiling, that someone had to love you enough to break that stupid curse.
Derek laughs, a genuine, unburdened sound, the weight of the curse lifted. He rests his forehead against hers, the bond humming with contentment, with love, with rediscovered power. Lyra whispers, "Happy birthday, Derek."
And he replies, his voice full of emotion. Best one yet, his arms secure around her. Their futures, once bound by curses and contracts, are now bound by something far more powerful and real. Love, freely given and received.
Wow. So that was quite the journey extracted from this paranormal romance transcript. We saw a world bound by rigid tradition, forcing its leaders into transactional alliances.
Yeah, and a powerful individual secretly battling a hidden curse with a magical, terrifying deadline.
It really lays bare the complex pressures faced by individuals, like Lyra feeling like bartered breeding stock, or Derek believing his worth is tied only to his power and status.
And how those pressures can lead people into arrangements that seem logical on the surface, but fail to account for the unpredictable nature of magic, Or, in Derek's case, a magical condition that requires something intangible like genuine love.
The contrast is striking between the relationships based on business, status, or power, like Lyra's initial proposed mating with Victor, or Isabel's purely transactional view of alliances, and the unexpected connection that formed between Lyra and Derek.
Initially a business deal, yeah, but transformed by vulnerability, honesty, and ultimately love.
This story beautifully illustrates how true strength isn't always about power or dominance. It's found in vulnerability, like Derek's drunken breakdown and confession.
And in caretaking, like Lyra helping him through his human hangover. And in the courage to choose connection and honesty over maintaining a facade or clinging to pride.
Ultimately, even in the most desperate magical circumstances, unconventional solutions can emerge, and genuine feelings can blossom in the most unlikely places, challenging perceived logic and even ancient curses.
It leaves you with a really compelling question to ponder. How might our own lives be subtly bound by unseen curses or expectations, societal pressures, family legacies, career ambitions, or even self-imposed limitations?
Right, and what unconventional choices, what surprising connections might truly be the key to setting us free from those constraints?
What does it mean to choose someone in any aspect of life, not for what they have, their wealth, status, or perceived power, but for who they are, especially when they feel they have nothing left to offer?
Thank you for joining us for this unique deep dive.
Until next time.